Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Red Tinted Glasses podcast. We are live, it's Monday evening, and good to have many of you joining us here on the YouTube channel. Paul Donaldson joining us as ever on the live, watching the snooker on the telly with us on the laptop. He didn't think, I think like many, the snooker would still be ongoing, but Phil, I don't think many thought that when we came live tonight, we would be discussing the Scottish Cup final ticket sales and stating that Aberdeen have sold out their allocation for the final. I think we should start on a positive.
Yes, absolutely. Really, really impressive. I mean, I was quite surprised. I thought that Cormac sort of underwriting all those tickets was quite a bold move, and by God, it paid off. I mean, I think even before it went to general sale, there was only about 2,000, 1,500 ish sort of left. So yeah, really impressive once again from the Red Army to travel in numbers, and hopefully we'll all be vindicated come the 24th of May. So if I'll be soaking up the booze in the atmosphere, probably much like yourself, Glenn. So if anyone does spot me, you can come and chat to me about the Dons free of charge. Buy 4 tickets under one account if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think has to be commended to the Red Army as a whole to that response to the ticket sales alone. I think even the most optimistic Dons fan wouldn't have thought we'd have sold out in one day. Obviously, as you said, 4 tickets to the account as well, a huge incentive. But I think it was Ian said in one of the group chats today, nothing antagonizes an Aberdeen support like an opportunity to get it right up the West Coast. And we've certainly done that and triggered all the correct people. I just wonder when Dave Cormack decides to put out a statement asking Celtic for some of their allocation back because they've not sold out yet.
I was about to say, have Celtic even sold a ticket yet? I'm going to put in parentheses that they've not even started their ticket sales yet, but terrible, terrible from the home support at Celtic.
Yeah, exactly. I wondered the same thing as well. Sam Gordon said he's bought 4 tickets, can't wait to spread out a bit and get comfy. And I think, look, if there has been people that have bought an extra ticket just to, help the club and prove a point, I'm actually not going to say there's anything wrong with that at this stage because I think we needed to, prove a point that we can sell that because been a lot of question marks aimed at us and a lot of wrong criticism aimed at us from Celtic fans that have a severe sense of entitlement that they deserve a ticket more than us. Um, I would just absolutely love to get it up them on the 24th of May, and it would be great that I know a lot of us will be travelling down in hope, but kind of hearing what Jimmy Talleen had to say at the Player of the Year event, there'll be no Wonderwall pre-match, that's for sure. That maybe we can bring that cup back north.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping so. Like you say, at Player of the Year on Thursday, it was great to kind of speak to current staff and players as well as the former. I had quite a good chat with Andy Constein about our hopes for the 24th of May. But yeah, maybe nothing better than, like you say, a loud and full Aberdeen end. Hopefully watching us repeat the same feat of 35 years ago. Although maybe not on pens. I don't know if my heart could take pens, but win the cup nonetheless.
I couldn't even take pens back when we last won a trophy, let alone now. So yeah, absolutely not. And obviously, as a club, we marked off 20,000 ticket sales today. There's a few of you joining in here live on the video on YouTube. If you've not subscribed to the channel, maybe we could mark off 2,250 by the end of that episode as well. I think Callum wanted it by the end of the season, but with Fair got close to that number. So if we get it by the end of the episode, if not the Scottish Cup final, that would be our own little personal milestone ticked off. So thank you for all the support shown to the channel. And Phil, you also mentioned a full, noisy away support. That's what we saw at Paisley. But unfortunately, not really much to cheer about as it was yet more pain in Paisley for the Dons.
Yeah, I mean, our drought goes on. I don't know what it is about going to St Mirren where we just seem to really, really struggle. Um, but yeah, I mean, a couple maybe interesting changes off the bat. Obviously Jensen not in the squad at all, assuming through injury. Although I've not seen anything quite yet. Um, to say why Devlin was in for him at right back and my man Yepe coming in for Pape, although on the wing instead of the 10, which I thought was quite interesting. I don't know what you thought when the lineup came out, Glenn.
Yeah, I have to say that the big surprise for me was no Alexander Jensen in the squad at all, let alone the starting lineup. I had a quite a good chat with Nicky Devlin on Thursday, asking him how he's kind of getting on with not being involved and how he has been dealing with that, if it's been frustrating, and kind of what we were speaking about on the last episode about the squad being ready. And he said it's kind of been drilled into him to be ready for an opportunity if it presents itself. And I don't know if that was a subliminal message ahead of the weekend or not. um I know obviously you watched the first half. I was still finishing up my round of golf, so only caught the second half. So I'll kind of ask you more about what you thought of Nicky's performance in that first 45. But to be honest, the biggest surprise for me was not necessarily Yeppe coming into the starting lineup, but was when you said you Topi got moved into the 10. Personally, given his performances on that left hand side, last 2-3 games, why that was the decision to move him into the 10 when we have the options we discussed last week, Obde Dabag and his partnership with Kevin Nisbet. Jamie McGrath, possibly. Could you have brought in Dante Polvara into the midfield and pushed Leighton Clarkson into that creative spark of the number 10? It didn't make sense, and from what you've said to me, didn't really work either.
No, I mean I feel sorry for Topi. I mean we were, as we often do, trying to play through him, because he is the sort of player with that level of quality, but it just didn't quite stick from at the 10. I feel like St Mirren were quite narrow as was, so he got crowded out really easily. A bugbear of mine with Tope is his inconsistency sometimes with his final ball, and I feel like that kind of was glaringly obvious at times. His decision making was a little bit worse for wear, and I think especially when the likes of Nisbet was dropping and he had nobody running ahead of him to give him the space, he kind of
Mm.
struggled. And I do think that having Yeppe in the middle where he's slightly slower and maybe a bit more technical, and moving Topi out onto the left, I think would have probably worked better. And I was kind of surprised that we didn't. There was some interchange, but I'm surprised we didn't kind of see a more regimented switch of that earlier on in the game.
Yeah, and Graham Gibbs kind of asking, is it the wrong team selection to play a St Mirren team playing at home? We spoke about, in the last episode about trying to be a bit more direct, maybe exploiting some of the weakness behind St Mirren over the top. And I don't really think moving Topi into the 10 kind of plays into that directness, because I think he certainly offers that on the wing. And like I said, I watched this second half in the clubhouse at Newmarket, and it was just, I mean, that was painful enough, let alone, I know, for those that will have endured the full 90. But listening to open all mics as I finished the round, it seemed to be that we were playing, you know, some good stuff in and around the fringes, Rory Loy said, but against a St Mirren side that a few of you are speaking in the comments about being negative, I think stuffy is maybe a good way to describe them. Is that more of a concern? Our struggle in recent weeks to break teams down that do sit in and are stuffy.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of same old that we've kind of spoken about this season. There was a lot of really really nice football being played, but nobody really seemed to be willing to have a shot. And we just always seem to want to score this perfect goal where we walk it or
Mm.
pass it into the net. And I mean, I think for me, the first corner of the game that we got went short, and I think for me that was the telltale sign of it was just going to be one of those afternoons where
Yeah.
we're not kind of forcing the issue enough, not really putting St Mirren under any pressure to buckle them. I think they were quite comfortable. They sat, very flat across the back with a back five. Hemming didn't really have any work to do at all other than run the clock down as the game went on. Um, just a bit of a frustrating afternoon, really, from that perspective.
Yeah, and I suppose, like maybe a lack of urgency. We've seen the kind of ability that Alexander Jensen brings to add energy on that right side in particular. Do you feel we missed him in comparison to Nicky Devlin on that right side? I know Nicky picks up a booking early on for a challenge you think he probably shouldn't or doesn't need to make, which maybe hampers him slightly as well. But was Alexander Jensen a big miss?
I think so. I think that right hand side with Shayden Morris. didn't kind of have the same punch. He was very sort of isolated, I thought. Whereas often you'll have Jensen sort of overlapping him on the regular. Devlin wasn't as forthcoming in doing that. I don't know if it is a little bit of ring rust. Obviously, I know you've said that he's sort of ready to go, but his performance for me, he had a sort of challenge he pulls out of early doors, where if he catches the St Mirren player, he's in the book, and then the second one, there was not a chance he was going to be getting to the ball. It was very a sort
Mm.
of hopeless effort, to be honest, that resulted in a booking. So, um, just didn't quite seem to be the same Nicky that we've seen at the start of the season. I think he grew into the game a little bit. He grew a little bit in confidence, but I think having someone flying up next to Morris, I think helps him so much. And I know
Mhm.
that he came in for quite a lot of stick on social media, but I thought that he was trying to do something. I don't know what the something was, but again, just I don't think he had that sort of help out wide to really let him thrive.
Yeah, I think I kind of felt a bit sorry for Shaden Morris because I guess he was on a bit of a hiding to nothing, after what happened on Thursday night. And I do want to speak about Thursday night as well, but I'm going to kind of wait a little minute before we speak about that. And I just felt that, if nothing came off, it would have been like, well, why has he been voted player of the year? But as you say, he's trying. Sometimes you're not sure what. If it's just a minimum of beating the last man, he does that. But again, it's as I said, from what I watched, he beat the last man, but it's that final ball, and the frustration from my point of view, and I don't know if it's shared by those watching with us live, listening, or yourself, is that for the build up that we offer within games, it's patient. Yes, we move the ball. Yes, it's nice football, if you want to call it that, but we're not threatening enough. And we discussed it before we came live. Sam Gordon said it as well, 0 shots on target, if he's not mistaken. David McLennan as well, saying not a single shot on target, tells you the team selection wasn't right. In a game that I said we needed to win to back up that victory over Hibs to continue to give us that real strength on the race for third. Is embarrassing too hard a word to say when you don't get a shot on target in a game that really keeps European group stage hopes in your own hands?
I don't think embarrassing's too strong a word to use, not at all. I mean, between the lack of, I don't want to say lack of effort in the attacking half, but the not taking any sort of game really to them inside their own box, and then the manner in which we do eventually concede as well, it is embarrassing. A lot of big talk. We keep on mentioning Thursday night, but there was a lot of big talk on Thursday night um, about the sort of ambitions, the sort of drive, the headspace that everyone's in,
Yeah,
and to me, it just wasn't really evident on Saturday. And I think even more frustrating that Hibs pick up that win against Dundee United, and it just makes that quest for third all the more basically impossible at this point, in my opinion.
yeah.
But yeah, just a really dire performance. And again, I think summed up when the club tweeted out in stoppage time towards the end, keep pushing Dons. And if that was their extent of their push, then my God,
Hmm.
we would have had no hope.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I saw, I mean, I'm not singling any players out in particular, but some of the efforts in that last 5 minutes when Pape came on, there was a couple of poor touches of control, or all Shade Morris seemed to do is win us corners. I was like, where's the kind of ability to move defenders side to side, kind of get that little gaps to the pass and move that we'd seen previously. And I know as well a couple of people will point out that, yet again, this whole hoodoo about going to Paisley, but being pointed out the fact that the likes of Dundee, Motherwell, St Johnson have all gone to Paisley and won in the last couple of years. Why is it just us in particular? And you made the point about players not taking the game by the scruff of the neck. And again, I go back to some of the conversations that were had on stage on Thursday night about players knowing they need to step up and show that leadership quality, looking ahead to the Scottish Cup final. But as David Owen points out, nobody was taking command at the weekend to have shots at goal, too many passing the buck. And Phil, as someone so eager to see our players take shots on. That must be driving you insane just now. One too many passes, and as we've said, trying to score that perfect goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case of one too many passes, one too many touches, too slow in moving the ball. It all just adds up, and it you get into this cycle, and you've seen it so often this season, where we sit on the edge of the box, and it goes out to the left, it then comes back in, it then goes out to the right, it then comes back in, it then goes back out to the left. Someone tries to whip a ball in, and it leads to nothing, and it just gets tiresome, and especially against a team like St Mirren that are so comfortable with the likes of Alex Gogic and Richard Taylor to just head the ball away. Um, they were happy for us just to do that and sit compact.
Mhm.
They knew that wasn't going to be our threat with balls in the box, especially without Pape. And even when Pape did come on, he was out in left wing for some strange reason, which
Yeah.
just didn't quite make sense. I mean, I think Graham Gibb had put in another comment as well about the amount of times that Ockles and Morris were in space, and we just were so slow in switching the ball.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it's just a frustrating afternoon. I think it's the best way. And I think, it comes across as if I'm being really dour about this all, but I think it is just the sort of the magnitude that was riding on the game in terms of sort of Europe. Um, yeah, it just felt like a bit of a sort of wasted effort.
Yeah, I think damp squib, given the hype going into the game, the build up from last weekend, the I remember Ian saying the way we celebrated last weekend's going to come back to bite us, the whole linking arms and cheering. I was more than happy to get carried away by it, but it does kind of come back with a little bit of egg on your face when you fall flat on your face with a performance like that. As I said, as we always seem to do. Your point there about the first half and getting balls out to the likes of Ockles and Morris, it's been something that I've said when even Dabag's come on. It's players that are, Keskinen's even had it as well, hanging on the edge ready for that ball. And we've done it for years. Take one too many touches or play a pass for somebody else to deliver. There's nobody kind of steps up willing to play that risky pass or look to find, I don't know, the killer ball, I guess.
Which is
And
so weird when you consider Clarkson's on the pitch, and that's something that he's always been so good at. When he first
mm,
came in, everyone said, "Wow, it's someone who's actually willing to take it on the turn and try and spray a 40-yard pass in behind." Okay, sometimes it's frustrating, and you think not every ball needs to be the final ball, but also, you don't just need to pass it around the back, to show you're a better team. It's scores at the end of the day that win a match.
yeah, and I think where I was going with that was more listening to Jimmy Tulline after the Rangers game at Pittodrie a few weeks back when we drew 2-2, and he was speaking about players needing to take responsibility and show the right mindset when they're on the pitch to make decisions. As much as he can, say, do this, do that, pass the ball here, when it gets that final third, it's up to a player to make the right pass and take ownership of the situation. And right now, we're not necessarily seeing that. It's which is a bit concerning given what is at stake. And I'm not just meaning finishing third in the league. There's a place in a cup final up for grabs. And from what I saw at the weekend, no one's really looking to grab that opportunity.
Yeah, it's like you say. I think at this point in the season, all we're really asking for is just best efforts at all times, and
Mm,
you know, doing what you can to win. And I think it was quite evident on Saturday that just didn't feel like it was the case.
yeah.
Um, and I think it really did just come from the fact there was nothing to get excited about. It wasn't like Zach Hemming played the game of his life and had 16 saves and we had multiple goals disallowed, this, that, and the
Mhm.
next thing. It was more just the fact of you know we just didn't trouble him at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just frustrating. I mean, I know that St Mirren are a tough team to break down, but we're going to have to break teams like St Mirren down. I mean, if we're wanting to keep on, trying to improve and build, it's something that we're going to have to do. I mean, even when you look at, potential European qualifier games,
Mm.
there might be teams that come and sit in at Pittodrie, and what we're going to do, just going to not try and score. It just,
Yeah.
yeah, really frustrating.
Yeah, and I just wonder if that is probably the biggest takeaway that Jimmy needs to take from this season as a whole. You know, we've played some nice football going forward, but when the teams do sit in, it's one thing we struggle with, whether that's on a recruitment side of things or a tactic side of things. Because again, I saw at the weekend a few people maybe saying Jimmy doesn't have a plan B. I saw Graham put in the comments earlier there about kind of maybe questioning a couple of the substitutions. But yeah, John Keelo's picking up the point there about us currently being a one-trick pony, push the ball wide and hope the opposition fullbacks aren't fast. Unfortunately, St Mirren were probably the first ones to warm to that tactic and nullify it. Now everyone else is doing it. We're really strong. We're really struggling. And in a season where you're looking to finish third, yes, you know, we've got a Scottish Cup final to look forward to. We were in the League Cup semi-final. 3 defeats against St Mirren in any season is nowhere near good enough, in the words of Paul Donaldson. And to be honest, it is, with the greatest respect to St Mirren, because they're probably going to put that on their honours board. It isn't good enough for a club like Aberdeen to be losing to St Mirren 3 times.
No, no, it's absolutely not. I mean, like I say, it might have been totally different should Ockles have goal stood. I feel heart sorry for him because I don't know how many weeks I've said now a goal will change the trajectory of his career. I'm pretty sure I even asked somebody to bookmark it on Twitter that he was scoring, and I felt so vindicated until I'd watched the replay back. But yeah, I mean, I do think that kind of changed the course of the game a little bit. It kind of sucked the life out of us even more and kind of just reinforced the fact that St Mirren were doing everything right because that really,
Yeah.
as I say, was our only shot on goal and in the end didn't even count. But
Yeah.
a rather strange one. I mean, obviously I know you probably missed the goal in real time
Mhm.
due to being out in the course, but um, for me, I just feel like it was one that shouldn't have been chalked off. I don't think the handball really changed any of the trajectory of the ball. I also don't think his hand comes up if Gogic isn't kind of putting his weight into him. So yeah, I do feel heart sorry for Ockles, but I think he even knew the minute it went in, it was getting lobbed off.
Yeah, you said in our group chat as well that you said Mark Ockles was scoring the winner. So when I saw that he'd scored, or heard it from the radio, I was like, "Oh, Phil's going to be unbearable if this finishes 1-0." And Leanne Crichton, Michael Stewart were kind of really a bit baffled as to why. I heard them mentioning handball, and I thought, oh, wonder if it's kind of similar again. Going back to the Rangers game. But then they said, look, the his hand's in the air. Why is his hand there? It brushes it. It's not intentional handball. I personally don't understand the rule because again, I've seen people say that by the rules it is the correct thing to rule that goal out. But one, obviously, you've got to ask the question is why is Kevin Nisbet's hand up there in the first place? And the first thing you notice, as you've already pointed out, is there's a push in the back from Alex Gogic. So where is that in the consideration on the VAR check? I was going to say in Ross Hardy's mind, but I don't think there's anything between the ears for Ross Hardy. Um, so yeah, I don't get that either. Does it change the trajectory? Is the ball always going to get to Jeppe Ockels regardless? I think so. Um, and yeah, I have to say I feel a bit sorry for him. And as Robert says, the disallowed goal knocked us for 10, which is kind of what you've already kind of summarised it in that feeling. And it's disappointing that when the kind of only bit of creativity in that half that allowed us the opportunity to get, as you said, what was our only shot on target, didn't count for anything. It didn't galvanise us. And is that a concern as well? It didn't kind of ignite a fire?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it was unfortunate as well because it comes towards the end of that half, that we didn't really have a solid sort of 25 minutes or so to kind of sit in the ascendancy. But you're right. I think we should have been a lot quicker at that point in getting the ball forward. We should have really been trying to keep the momentum with us. I mean, obviously the VAR check kind of slows that down, but
Hmm.
as John said, if we do score, St Mirren have to change their tactics, and
Yeah.
you know, the minute that St Mirren come out, we probably have a lot more joy with the way that we're playing. Between Morris, Kessler, and Ockles, we'd have had a lot more space, but Again, I think it just kind of vindicated St Mirren's decision to sit in, that was
Mhm.
really the only time that, they almost got it wrong.
Yeah, and again, like it's frustrating from an Aberdeen point of view that we we couldn't come up with an alternative game plan or couldn't move the ball quick enough to stretch a St Mirren defence that as much as it's anti-football, it's negative, it's effective for a team like St Mirren who knew they needed a minimum of a point to keep any European hopes alive. They picked up all three and they head to play Dundee United this weekend, which could really ignite their hopes of not only catching Dundee United in fifth, but with us heading to Ibrox at the weekend, they may even have one eye on catching us in fourth. So we've gone from last week thinking about third to potentially can we hold on to fourth as a minimum? And I think I was discussing it with Stephen in the office today. Despite, as I've already mentioned, being in the Scottish Cup final, if we do finish any less than fourth, given our league start, is that a disappointing season? Because I'd be verging on agreeing that it is a disappointing season, finishing anywhere from fifth, or heaven forbid we drop down to sixth.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, fourth in the final, sort of, I think a good season,
Hmm.
for Jimmy's first spell. Um, but yeah, I think if St Mirren somehow catch us, that would just, oh, they would be unbearable as well. I think that's the worst bit.
Mm,
Um, they would just be so unbearable to deal with,
yeah.
and that would make it 10 times worse. But um, yeah, just I don't even want to try and think about it at this point. I've been trying to store up my positivity for the final at this rate. Yeah, the reminders of the St Mirren game just aren't helping.
No, I'm needing a few more Celtic injuries to get any form of positivity for that final. I mean, the ticket sales is one glimpse, but um, yeah. I suppose another kind of frustration from the weekend. You ripped it up on last week's podcast, zonal marking, but Jimmy Tilleen continues to use it and hasn't ripped it up. Um, is that one of the big factors in the goal that we concede? Because again, looking back at it in the highlights and seeing it for me, it's I don't know. I may be harsh in blaming Alfie Dorrington. It looks like he kind of doesn't jump, gets out the way, but Mikael Mandron, a player of his form, I was going to say quality, but I don't want to stretch that far. His form shouldn't be afforded the time to take the ball down on his chest and volley it home, should he?
Yeah, I mean, it's a frustrating goal all round for a number of reasons. I mean, as a few people have mentioned in the comments, like the inconsistency from Ross Hardy, to not give a foul on Shinnie, then give the exact same thing against McGrath, I believe on Killian Phillips, within about the space of 30 seconds. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Also, the same way he was adamant that Clarkson should make sure the ball's in the arc for a corner. Don't think I've seen that since an under eights game, at Inverdy pitches, but fair enough. Um, and then, yeah, just the fact that St Mirren are able to just float this really weak ball into an area because we're playing such a high zonal line. Dorrington gets out jumped by Taylor, um, doesn't go for it. Mandron has three players around him and somehow is able to take the ball down on his chest, and volley it home. It's just really schoolboy stuff, to be honest. And it, I don't want to say it felt like it was coming, but it certainly didn't feel like we were going to score with our lack of chance creation. That you almost felt like if St Mirren did get the chance to lob one into the box, that with the physicality and the height they've got on that team, they were going to make us pay for it. And yeah, Mandron getting rewarded on the back of his new deal with a goal, was just, yeah, painful. A painful goal to concede.
Yeah, I mean it's a type of goal we've been conceding all season as well. We're not learning the lessons from which, again, is concerning when we've got all these kind of cup finals as we're calling them to look forward to between now and the end of the season. But I think the other thing that was really disappointing was the level of reaction from the players for going 1-0 down. I mean, you can say we were creating, but there was nothing clear cut, as you've already mentioned, nothing to test or work Hemmings in the goal as well. So for me, that's not really a reaction, just winning corners and then doing nothing with them isn't much of a reaction. Was that disappointing for you as well?
Yeah, I think massively. I mean, especially with the subs that came on as well. You know, you had Daba, Pape, Fletcher, Boyd, all coming on, um, and none of them really impacting the game in any meaningful way when they did come off the bench either. Everything just felt really low tempo, low energy, lethargic. Felt like the heads had gone. It was almost like being back during the losing run, where it felt like that was it.
Hmm.
After a goal, the heads had been chucked. I thought McGrath came on and again was good. Um, I think his cross semi turned shot was the only time I actually seen Hemming having to scramble for anything for 90 minutes, where he had to tip one round the post. But yeah, just it's a really poor reaction, a really poor afternoon, to be honest.
Yeah, and on the kind of reaction and level of effort, it goes back to kind of a comment that you made about what we as fans expect in terms of maximum effort, but something that I feel that Jimmy Taline has been kind of beating the drum on, and again, so did Dave Cormack on Thursday night, is that when the players kind of step out, I think Graham Shinney alluded it to as well, that you know they're all will be given maximum effort to achieve that highest league possible finish, and it's almost like an empty statement when you then see that level of performance on Saturday. But I mean, people blaming Thursday night for the performance. I, I don't know how you're putting two and two together and getting that. Is there anything in having our player of the year on a Thursday night and then losing? Because I'm pretty sure last year, when we were in a much worse position, we didn't lose the game after player of the year. I think it's said that we've actually won our last three games after player of the year. But yeah, I mean, it was a late night. I think it finished about quarter to midnight, didn't it? Actually, I
I
was
mean,
just ask you
I
about.
was I was like, say, I didn't leave till 1, and I don't remember much after that, so probably not the best person to ask.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't leave till about 12:30, but yeah, I'm pretty sure the final awards weren't maybe announced about 11:30, but
Yeah, I mean, table
um,
started clearing at like 11:30, quarter to.
either that's just because folk had enough to drink and off they were home. Certainly, Calm had plenty of free prosecco for himself that on Thursday night, but yeah, anything in that can is that just showing how desperate we are to look to blame player of the year? Is it something the club should look at? I can't believe we're discussing this. To moving, you look at Celtic; they had theirs last night after the Old Firm derby. Could the club do it on a Sunday or a Monday night?
I mean, they could do. I mean, it would potentially save me taking a day of annual leave, which would be the only perk in my eyes. But,
I mean, if it's a Sunday,
um,
I'm still needing a day's annual leave the way
well,
my head was on Friday.
well, that's true. That's very true. Um, but I think, yeah, I don't think you can really put that down to blame. None of the players are drinking. They're all kind of cleared off. Um, I would like to think, as professionals, they can probably get a good night's sleep on a Friday, and be ready for a
Steve Bosch will
Saturday.
tell you otherwise,
Well,
judging by his rant.
yeah, apparently so, but yeah, I think it's just kind of attempting to clutch at something. It's the same way as off the back of the whole Player of the Year award, Morris came in for a lot of stick on social media. Um, Again, I think that was just already a sort of target on his back from minute one if he put in
Mhm.
a stinker. So no, I don't. I personally, I don't think it's got anything to do with how awful we were. I think we were just awful, to be
Yeah,
honest.
and Sam Gordon saying that the players look knackered from minute one. Don't think Thursday is to blame. I think I don't know if fitness concerns is the right, but Shaden Morris in particular has not exactly looked the full bundle of energy that we're used to. Okay, the fact he's been starting games compared to being on the bench, but is there signs of tiredness creeping into this squad? And again, it may be something that we might discuss next Monday after the Rangers game, result dependent. But with that cup final coming up, you know, tiredness going to affect it. I just really am not for going down there and see us get absolutely played off the park and hammered because of tiredness. And if the race for third is wrapped up by Dundee United, do you look at resting players and trying to put some energy into the legs.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, I think a lot of what we're doing now will probably be with a slight eye to Hamden. Like I said, I don't know if that's maybe why Jensen was left out. If he maybe felt something, wasn't quite
Mm,
injured, but sort of felt maybe something might go should
yeah.
anything go wrong. And it's yeah, I think everything's gonna have a kind of eye to Hamden. But I mean, like Lucas has put in the comments, I mean, I'm always of the opinion that if you're playing at a top level and you can't play a game a week, then something's going vastly wrong, either in what you're doing or you're getting overworked, or something is just going insanely wrong on the training ground. Um, and it was kind of what happened with Europe with us a couple of seasons ago. We just didn't have a big enough squad, and it came back to absolutely bite us.
Mhm.
And I'm really hoping that the fact that all we've really had this season is league and cup football, that players shouldn't be out on their legs at this point in the season.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well. If you're blaming Thursday night for the players being knackered, I think that's massively clutching, given we've not exactly had anything exerting in terms of the games, and if that's going to affect them, well, I hope we don't qualify for Europe then, because if they can't struggle with one odd Thursday night towards the end of the season, how are we going to cope if we, have serious hopes of finishing and obtaining that group stage football? Because yeah, the players clearly can't cope.
Yeah, it's just again, I think it's been something that's always kind of frustrated me is just how we seem to tire sooner than a lot of other teams
Mm,
around us, and I can never quite figure out what the root cause of that is.
yeah. Um, just to kind of sum up then on player of the year, Tope Keskinen picking up goal of the season. No,
So
sorry, young player, but a man of very few words, literally, not wanting to be there. And another player that wasn't there was Esther Sokler, who picked up goal of the season as well. Kind of shame for him not being there, which maybe just shows the severity of his injury.
yeah, obviously back home in Slovakia, one of them.
Slovenia.
I was really putting my Eurovision knowledge to the test there.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
A
but
couple of weeks until me and you hit that up.
I know, can't wait, can't wait. Um, but yeah, no, obviously at home with his family and getting ready for next season, I was kind of gutted he couldn't accept the award because again, that's another player that seems to have not quite maybe hit the heights from his sort of more positive spells. Thinking back to Frankfurt and Hampden and Celtic Park,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, no, a good night all round. Nisbet picking up an award as well.
Yeah, I think as well. Like, what does that award took me by surprise? Kevin is getting player of the year. Just shows maybe how well liked he is within the dressing room.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you can kind of see that on Thursday. And I think you see it in a lot of the sort of training ground sort of content that comes out. As he does seem to be quite a popular fella amongst the team. So not surprising. I mean, he's obviously contributed more so at the turn of the year, but yeah, a big impact to sort of getting back on the horse.
Yeah, and a lot's been made of, certainly when Jimmy Talleen came to the club. I know we've not seen it as such yet. Is the integration of younger players. Dylan Lobban picking up Development Player of the Year. Do you think, given himself, Adam Emsley was previously recalled for a couple of weeks from his spell at Cove. You mentioned it last week. Finlay Marshall's been impressive on loan there as well. Is there any opportunity for any of those three in particular to make a name for themselves next season? And I'm kind of interested on the back of winning Development Player of the Year if Dylan is afforded any opportunity.
I mean, I'm certainly hoping that they're getting involved next season. I mean, Dillerman in that word, I think, kind of took me by surprise a little bit. I thought that Adam Emsley would have been a shoe in. I know that he's been, scoring and assisting for fun at Cove on the right wing. But yeah, all three of them, I think, are really going to benefit the next couple of weeks as well with Cove's playoff
Hmm.
run as well. Playing in some high stakes games, um, and being in around obviously experienced players like Fivey, Mitch Megginson, etc. In that sort of environment, I think will really just help them grow. And like you say, hopefully, start to see them a little bit more next season because it is something that I think we've really sort of lacked at present.
Yeah, because I said if I recall correctly, was it not an award that's voted for by the manager and his coaching staff, which again is a bit strange given that it was Adam that was recalled and not Dylan, but yeah, maybe sums up some of the decision making that people would like to pick up on. And then, of course, the main award for the men's team won by Shaden Morris, Graham Shinney, and Leighton Clarkson, completing the top three. I don't think they disclosed who was second and third. But yeah, Shaden very emotional in his speech, pointing to a conversation him and Graham Shinney held in his car for half an hour. Also pointing out to the fact that he wasn't sure if he'd be in Aberdeen this time last year, let alone on this stage picking up the award as well. And obviously touching to have his mum present at the awards to see him collect the award. I think for those there will have seen just how much that meant to Shaden. But as we said then, when you go into a game like Saturday, unfortunately, he was on a bit of a hiding to nothing to try and back that performance up, or award up, I should say.
Yeah, like I said, I think he immediately had that target on his back, and I think potentially this season, Player of the Year was a bit of a harsh award to give out. We should have probably just had monthly Player of the Month award dinners, because I don't feel we've really had anyone that's consistently all year round.
God,
Um,
think of the amount of games we'll lose if we do monthly award dinners.
God, it would be
Steve talks will
chaos
be
on
pulling his
Twitter.
hair out.
And it'd be, well, yeah, it'd be chaos on Twitter. Absolute chaos.
What might be chaos on Twitter is this weekend if we can't get a result at Ibrox and potentially falling back into that trap, as I've mentioned, of Dundee United and St Mirren in fifth and sixth, and also losing potential further ground to Hibs depending on their result at Parkhead against Celtic. The Dons heading to Ibrox with the home side having failed to pick up a home win in their last 7 games at Ibrox. Barry Ferguson potentially being the first Rangers manager to not win a home game in his first season in charge. What an awful time to go to Ibrox, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like there's been they've had terrible home form since about the Queens Park game. I think that was maybe their third or fourth game at home that they'd lost.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think now that it suddenly became such a big deal, you can almost nail on that something's going to go wrong on Sunday, as is often the case with the media and trying to immediately put us on a sugary peg from minute one. But like, I mean, I didn't watch a whole bunch of the Celtic Rangers game on Sunday, and the
Mm-hmm.
bits I did catch, to be honest, neither team really caught my eye. I thought Desser scored a good goal, but really, I think we should be using the fact that Rangers have been so ropey at home to kind of play into a bit. Obviously, the game at Pittodrie was really frustrating, and the fact they managed to come back into it. So I think it is really vital that we kind of learn from that and sort of understand how clinical you need to be with the chances when they come.
Yeah, and I think clinical is a really key word to use this weekend. It's something that we always use when we go to Ibrox and Parkhead. And if Adam Ida had been a bit more clinical, I think Celtic win that game comfortably. Um, Again, Celtic showed what many teams have been able to show at Ibrox, that you will get chances against this Rangers backline. And that's something that we've got to look to exploit. But do we exploit it with Topi Keskinen in the 10, or does Jimmy Tilleen admit he's made a mistake and move him back out onto that left wing, and is Pape back to provide a little bit of a physical threat against Leon Balogun?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. I mean, you saw how much problems Tope caused Ross McCausland, who I don't think will be lining up at right wing back this time around, but um, just his sheer pace on that left hand side, I think even against Tavernier will cause issues. Um, and I think he's way better suited to being out there. And then, like you say, I think whether Pape does come back in the starting lineup, I think it's got to be someone that is a bit more of a physical presence in that 10, whether it's Pape, whether it's potentially Povara. But again, I don't know if it's maybe too soon for him to be thrust back in. Obviously, I mean, he's looked brilliant when he's came on, but I've got no idea where he is in terms of his injury recovery. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it'll be an interesting one. It'll be an interesting one to see how he lines up, whether it's back to the
Yeah.
sort of team from the last couple of weeks.
Do you think he lines up to go for it and kind of play on some of that frailties within the Rangers team, or be a bit conservative in the initial approach and look to frustrate the home crowd as we've seen managers do previously?
I think he's got to line up and go for it. I mean, sort of holding back. It's a game that now we really kind of have to win.
Mm.
You know, I think
Is it have to win or have to not lose? Well,
it's
so I
a
suppose it's
difficult
end
one.
result dependent, is it?
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult one because you almost look at going to Parkhead as the one that if you're going to lose any, then that's the one.
Mm.
Um, so you'd probably want to pick up the 3 points at Ibrox. Um, and I think similarly, you're sort of in that position where equally, if you score an early goal, that'll frustrate the crowd as much as try to hold off a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
so I do think he's really got to take the game to them. And I think going in towards looking at the cup final, if we can try and get a bit of confidence, especially in front of goal back in the team, is massively essential.
Yeah, I mentioned obviously, maybe playing someone like Pape Gay to, rough up Leon Balogun. We concede from a set piece at the weekend against Mirren. Hibs had plenty of joy with balls into the box. Again, for those that will have watched the Old Firm game, will have saw Leon Balogun should have scored in the early stages. Nico Raskin has a header ruled out for offside. So again, Rangers at the weekend were having plenty of success from balls into the box and set pieces. How much work can we put on that in this week to kind of improve our set piece defending when we go to Ibrox? But how much do we need to improve on that overall between now and the 24th of May?
Massively, but it's such a hard thing to improve when we've so consistently played a zonal marking system. It's
Mhm.
at this point, it's probably more detriment to try and switch back to man, because if one person just switches off and goes back into the mindset of they're marking a zone, you're just going to have someone running free. So it's, in my opinion, I can't see our actual system of zonal marking improving much, because I just feel like it's an inherently flawed system when you've not got the likes of a Virgil van Dijk at centre half. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's something I think we really need to sharpen up with. But whether we'll see a drastic improvement, I'm unsure.
But kind of in terms of then that like physicality that Rangers might try and bring in and the height, we mentioned putting Toby Keskinen on the left because pace seems to scare the living daylights out of James Tavernier. What other areas can we look at to kind of exploit potential weaknesses in that Rangers team? I mean, I don't think Liam Kelly's the best goalkeeper going. John Suter for me's got a mistake in him most weeks. Where does this Aberdeen team look to take advantage of Rangers, or
I
can
think
we take advantage? Sorry.
I think it is trying to get back to that early season sort of style and that mindset of winning that ball high. Rangers love to flood forward, especially with their fullbacks, Tavernier and if it's Jeff Day that starts at left back, they love
Mm.
to get really high up. And if we can exploit it by shifting the ball quickly into those wide positions and taking advantage of that, getting the likes of Clarkson high up the pitch and taking shots on, Nisbet getting back to his sort of, revived form of being that sort of fox in the box as well as that sort of unbelievable worldy strikes that he's got in him as well. I think it is just trying to shift that mindset into really taking it on. Someone just kind of has to you know take the sort of initiative, and sort of lead by example, and it will come.
Again, I suppose then for Kevin Nisbet, I seen a couple of comments when we were discussing the St Mirren game around his performance about failing to be the target man or the hold up man. How important for Kevin Nisbet's performance is having a suitable partner up there to improve his game, because clearly with Toby Keskinen something wasn't going right. But I'm not saying stuff was going right with Pape, but for me, he's looked most comfortable with Obday up alongside.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think that Ode does need to kind of have that chance for us to kind of see what he's like. Um, Similarly, it just kind of feels like it's a game where Pape's height and his unpredictability will kind of help us a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, and having that option of, more of a nine in Ode to kind of come on as a centre forward should we need it, I think is quite a benefit to us.
Does the fact that, as David McLennan says, on the bright side, Rangers won't have 10 players behind the ball, so fast counter attack, does the fact that Rangers will look to play open, expansive football, as we've seen, you've mentioned both Hefty and Tavernier, does that play into our hands slightly? Because I think Barry Ferguson will very much be looking to prove a point in this game for his own kind of job application. I was trying to think of the right word, but I think it'd be hilarious if they gave him the job. But um, yeah, does their kind of almost need to end this winless run at Ibrox play into our hands as well?
I think so, because I mean I think the pressure's on them to really be in the ascendancy, um, and their midfield as well likes to get high, likes to be in and around the box, and I think it's important that when we do win the ball back, we shift it quicker. I think that was again something that was frustrating against St Mirren, is it just seemed to be so slow, in the way we did get the ball forward. So I think we do need to try and be as quick and as sharp as we can. And really it's kind of a precursor again for Hampden, where when
Hmm.
we do get the ball in our possession, in the sort of winning the ball higher up, um, we need to be a lot quicker in shifting it, and try to make that speed and man advantage count where we can. Because I think so often we slow the play down and just let teams get back in their shape, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned about the cup final there. I seen a tweet um, yesterday, I think, about the cup final and kind of comparing it to the St Mirren game, where, if we play like we did against St Mirren, it'll be pass, 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 thinking, first 15 minutes we're doing well. Celtic will get one chance, score, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake. And I kind of compared that when I was watching the game yesterday that, Rangers were, you know, doing well in possession, creating half chances. Celtic cup 2-3 passes along the back line. One ball I think was from Matate, Ida through one on one, scuffed his shot, probably against us, finds the back of the net. It's how these things work. It just shows how quickly they can change a game. And I just wonder as well, a lot of the talk after last weekend um, was that, now third is over, after failing to back up that result against Hibs. Is this weekend a case of, well, actually, let me rephrase this. Is the race for third over? Let's go with that first. Is the race for third over in your mind after losing to St Mirren?
It's a tough one.
I
I'm
was going to say it's
inclined
a
to
yes
say
or no
yes.
question, and then I'll like elaborate. But
Yeah, I mean, in my eyes, yes. I mean, I
Mhm.
think I used the term on here and on Twitter where it feels near impossible. In my opinion, between the goal difference and the fact we're now 3 points behind, um, in our run of games in can be tricky. So you know, I can see it. I can see it being gone, in my opinion.
I saw Stewie Walker say that given the fixtures this weekend, is it the last chance saloon? Given Hibs go to Parkhead, St Mirren play Dundee United, do wins for St Mirren and Celtic play into our hands? Obviously, that then relies on us winning, because the game in midweek after that is, I'm not sure where, but St Mirren and Hibs play each other. And as I already mentioned, if St Mirren do pick up the 3 points this weekend, they are very much back in the hunt for a fifth place finish, which, given the cup final, will bring European football. I just think, despite I like the optimism that Stewie's coming from. It's very, very much in the Callum Wright levels of optimism. But we're relying on us going down to Ibrox and getting everything right, and relying on the SFA to not do us over as well. But it's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes. Unfortunately, I think we've stumbled one too many times, and I think as much as it's disappointing to have lost that gap to Hibs, given the run that they've been on, fair play to them going on to secure that third place. What we just have to do is avoid falling behind Dundee United and even worse at Mirren, and look to secure that fourth place as a bare minimum. And if we can somehow still have hopes of third going into the last couple of games, deal with that when that bridge comes. But yeah, in my mind, I feel our hopes for third ended at the weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to just focus on our own game. Because I mean, how often have results gone our way and then we've just absolutely blown it,
Mm.
um, or vice versa, nothing's gone our way, and we've blown it and we end up a further 3 points behind everybody. So I think it's just vitally important that we just sit and focus on ourselves. And like you say, if it comes down to Tannadice being the game that makes or breaks third, then cross that bridge when you get to it.
Yeah, I just hope it's not a game that makes or breaks fourth place and carries a lot of importance, because I would quite like a week where there's kind of nothing riding on a game before a cup final. But going on that point, kind of then to wrap up about focusing on our own game and our own performance, how much then between now and the cup final, if we're kind of putting the thoughts of third place to one side, do we need to kind of get that correct performance? I was going to say 90-minute, but we've been waiting all season. I'm not expecting it to come in the next 4 games, but a little bit of pride and confidence to give that the fans that confidence, belief heading towards the Scottish Cup final, because I feel there's been a bit of a knock in the fans' confidence after the weekend.
Yeah, I definitely think that consistency and that confidence is vitally important. I mean, going into a game at Hampden against Celtic, a lot of people will probably think that they're they're 1-0 down already, and I don't think that's the attitude that we need to go into that game with. I think it needs to try and be as positive and high level as it can be. And like you say, I think as much as we've not really seen a 90-minute performance this season,
Mhm.
um, these next sort of 3 league games are, a better time than ever to actually try and string that together. Um, and give the players something to kind of feed off as well to sort of maybe show themselves and reinforce themselves the sort of caliber they can play at and the level of player that they are. Um, so no, I think the performance over these next 3 games and particularly at Ibrox on Sunday are vitally important.
Yeah, exactly. Performance is vitally important, but also shows the effort. We want to see that being applied, and I don't want to see tiredness being touted as as an excuse as well. So hopefully we can see a bit more effort, and a bit more of a rounded performance to give us that confidence. And if we can sneak a result, that just adds to that confidence and momentum going into that midweek clash with Celtic at Pittodrie, which of course is the final home game of the season. Who knows what that game has in store? We'll be back next week live here on the YouTube channel to review the action from the weekend, but also preview that final home game as well. So hopefully a little bit more positive than this week. God knows we need it, as I said, going into that cup final as well. But thank you very much to everyone that has tuned in with us live this week here on the YouTube channel. As I said, we're looking to hit that 2,250 mark on YouTube. Follow us wherever you are listening. I think we're close to 800 followers on Spotify as well. I wonder if we can hit that before the Scottish Cup final. But yes, thank you everyone for your continued support as we wind down towards the end of the season. We'll be back next week and we will see you then.